Welcome to the Advertising Forum. This is episode 1 of our 2025 Creative Experience Series, sponsored by Triple Lift.
Today we have James Trott, Senior Director, Global Addressable Media at the Coca-Cola Company. We're here to chat about retail media, dynamic, creative, and more. James, thanks for joining us on the pod today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. Thanks for joining at a late time. I know that you're abroad. I know that you're in the UK. So thanks for accommodating the time.
It's 5:15 here on a Friday in the UK. It's punchy, but I'm happy to be here.
We owe you a refreshing crisp one. Thank you.
No worries.
James, from your perspective, you work at Coca-Cola, you have a ton of data. We know that retail media networks have been popular and they've been scaling, and we're hearing more and more companies doing that. But what do you think is actually driving that growth? And how does Coca-Cola adapt to the space and work with so many different players in the market?
Yeah, well, to answer the first part of the question, I think that there is growth and will probably be continued growth because it benefits every stakeholder that's involved. So from a consumer point of view, the increasing loyalty schemes, the offers that you're getting to use a loyalty card, that really is the data that powers the retail media networks, right? That the purchase data is how you are able to segment audiences or measure performance. So consumers benefit from great loyalty schemes that they can participate in. The retailers themselves benefit from net new revenue streams, right? Previously, they sold goods to their customers, but now there is a whole net new revenue stream where you can also monetize the data that you have on your customers in a obviously like privacy compliant legal way. And you can also monetize your online assets in the same way that you can monetize your in-store assets, right? With in-store advertising, you do it the same way with e-commerce. And it works for advertisers because we get to leverage that. We get to access that. We get to add transactional based data segments and audiences for targeting to our campaigns, and we get to access high quality inventory in the form of e-commerce, sort of like websites, as well as all the things that you can do with creative that I know we're going to dig into. So it's growing because it works for everybody. It's a very beneficial thing for all stakeholders that are involved.
When you talk about the data available to you as the brand, as the product and market, real-time data like prices and inventory kind of pop into my head. How are you utilizing that? And how are you, when it comes to dynamic creative formats, how are you using that data that you have available to deliver better messages to your users or to your potential customers?
Yeah. I actually think that our category, CPG in particular, probably has slightly less to benefit than some others when considering that I think price point and product availability, so scarcity, is something that will probably benefit other products more than Coca-Cola and some of the beverages that we sell in our portfolio. So I think an interesting example to think about is whenever that you're trying to buy concert tickets, for example, and I think that those kind of websites do a very good job of highlighting the scarcity and the demand and the need to buy, right? Almost sort of like immediately. Like that's a good use of inventory availability, right? A limited amount of tickets to encourage purchase, like relatively immediately for people that want it. So I guess our category, beverages, people buy beverages on a day-to-day basis. The price point is a little bit lower than those sort of things. So I think it's very interesting, and we will definitely, to answer the second part of your first question as well, we'll always try and understand the value that we can get out of any part of the media ecosystem, right? We believe, as does most other industries, that data and tech is going to be able to deliver greater performance and greater ROI. So we will always try and experiment with those kind of things. So we will definitely be experimenting and getting as much value out of it as possible. But I think that there's probably other categories that might benefit more from that sort of scarcity and price point creative direction than our part of the CPG category.
So, I want to touch up on something, the ability for, ticket sales to play on that scarcity piece. Let's say a beverage is something that you consume on a daily basis. How does creative personalization play a look at the type of scale that you're working on? And how are you customizing and dynamically changing creative to create that need for or want for of your product?
Well, there is definitely a belief. And I think this could even be something that's like just generally accepted in the industry now, that more relevant messaging, more personalized, more tailored messaging is going to yield a better response from the person that's seeing it. So there's probably a scale, to your point, on how you can do that and how you can do that effectively at scale. I think at one end, and something that we try and do as much as we can of, is just simply not one asset, one ad that everybody is served. Ideally, it's the same campaign, it's the same creative, it's the same spirit, but there is something that's a little bit more relevant to a more relevant segment, right? So you go from one ad to everybody to maybe 5 ads to 5 segments, for example, that you would expect to have a little bit of a better resonance and a little bit of a better response. You obviously can, at the moment, do far more dynamic and far more personalized creative. But I guess you've got to be really thinking about what parts of your campaign and the spirit of your creative is actually going to be enhanced by that, by saying or including where a person might be, or what the weather might be, for example, which does actually work really well, but it has to respect the spirit of the campaign. And also there's a little bit more operational legwork into it, I guess. So you have to be quite confident that it's going to be worth the additional effort and additional sort of cost it goes to actually activating it. But generally speaking, I think we definitely believe that personalization, tailored creative is a good thing to do, and should be done appropriately within the spirit of the campaign message.
So that's a perfect liftoff spot, James. I could tell that your wheels were spinning when you were talking, and I want to get inside your head right now for a second. When a campaign doesn't perform as expected, what's your process for figuring out whether the issue lies in the message, the medium, or if it's the mechanics behind the scenes? Like, how do you figure this out in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah. So, we were talking, before, Jeremy. We're both, programmatic, addressable, marketers. So the part of the campaign that I look at is within the context of programmatic and addressable delivery. And obviously you've got a lot of levers that you can pull to try and address problems, if there are problems, or optimize the campaign. So it might be my scope of understanding and how a campaign has performed is very much within that context. So I would say that rigorous creative testing happens pre-campaign. Right, we have some brilliant partners to make sure that the creative that we've built tests well and is going to perform well. You don't put something into market without having that kind of like confidence. But then once it's in market, from a programmatic perspective, I actually find that if something isn't performing well, the issues are usually quite obvious. It's either there is limited scale because an audience is possibly too small. It will be because there hasn't been a certain SDK connection, so you haven't got the feedback loop you were expecting in order to actually optimize media. There'll be something quite obvious that you need to sort of fix. Otherwise, you typically have the levers to be able to make sure that you are delivering, you are maximizing your media spend according to whatever your objective or your KPI you're trying to deliver is. So yeah, I think that the challenges with are things working well or not are probably different in the programmatic context towards the wider campaign context, where you might review it and it might be actually, I'm sure to give an example because it's not something that I actually do on a day-to-day basis, but there might be sort of like more macro reasons for things not performing as well, more broadly across the whole media plan.
Sure. Well, let's stick on micro then. Let's stick on pulling the levers. Let's stick on programmatic. And so, based on our collective experiences, why are the pipes, so to speak, like ad serving technology, so crucial for bringing a strong concept to life when working with SSPs like a Triple Lift?
Yeah, I think the programmatic addressable space has been continuously evolving and continuously improving. And one thing, I think the open web in general is a massively important part of the whole media ecosystem, specifically the digital ecosystem. I think it's going to be the home of professionally produced human created content, which is going to become even more relevant as we see AI become more accessible to the everyday person and can create everyday videos and whatever very easily. I think that there will be a premium on human based content which is going to live in the open web. So I think it's that's very important. So, I think we've been getting better and better and better at understanding the supply chain and understanding that programmatic is the best way to access the open web and every part of the open web. So it's really critical, but it often has, and rightly so, it has some challenges leveled at it around what is the quality of media that you're accessing? Are we paying appropriately for every part of that value chain, the supply chain? So I think being able to be on top of that and understand that know confidently that you're working with the best partners on the demand side and the best partners on the supply side means that you have confidence in that full digital value chain and that you know that you're accessing quality media and you're paying appropriately for great partners who are providing the value that you need to access that quality media and also optimize it. Also, use innovative products that the likes of, Triple Lift and other SSPs have. So, it's transparent, efficient access to quality media that will be more and more important, I think, as months and years go on.
Yeah, we agree with that. Before we conclude, we've got one final question for you, specifically, James. Just being at one of the most legacy, well-known, iconic brands globally, how do you see, you personally, this is not on behalf of all of Coca-Cola, obviously, but how do you see the future of creative evolving over the next few years?
Yeah, it will probably evolve in a lot of ways. But I guess if I can try and give you quite maybe more of a salient point, I think that we are going to understand to a greater degree how individuals may like to receive their ads. Not in terms of personalization as in where they are, what time of day it is, what the weather's like, but more like, does this person prefer a review? Does this person prefer a big product shot? Do they prefer a celebrity sort of endorsement? The things that I guess maybe you could actually use in a responsive way to tailor actually a multitude of different assets are available that this person will probably respond best to. Right. That's quite a future facing sort of, idea. But I think that could be perhaps, where we're going, especially with some of the data that I imagine some of the brilliant platforms that we partner with have about their sort of users. The customization will be very tailored, very, very unique, but again, not using dynamic, the dynamic triggers and stuff that we know of today, but of more sort of like macro, how can you build an ad that is going to best speak to this potential consumer?
James, I want to thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you to the Coca-Cola Company for having you here. We really appreciate your time, and thanks for all your insights. Triple Lift, thank you for sponsoring this episode, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, James.
Bye.